And next speaker, it's a real honor to introduce our next speaker, Betsy Siggins. Betsy is a founder and the director of the New England Folk Music Archive, NEFMA.
Actually, we've changed our name.
Oh, okay, I'll let you tell us about that then. But Betsy has been a central figure in the Cambridge, Massachusetts folk music community since she happened on the coffeehouse scene as a college freshman in 1958. She was a founding and is a founding member of Club 47, where fellow Boston University students Joan Baez, Jim Kweskin, and Eric von Schmidt helped to launch the New England Folk Music Revival. She returned to Club 47's successor at the Passim Folk Music Center as executive director, and she served as executive director there for 12 years before she went on to found the archives in 2009. Among other accomplishments, she assisted folklorist Ralph Rinsler with the early Smithsonian Festival of American Folklife, which is now the Smithsonian Folklife Festival in the National Mall, and really her list of accomplishments and her influence in the field is much too long for me to go into here, but I'm delighted she's here, and I'll turn over. You're gonna sit for your presentation. Okay, I'll turn over the podium to Betsy and let her tell you about Club 47 and the New England folk music scene. Please make her welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Jocelyn's presentation of where Cafe Lena has been able to go in the last 40 or 50 or, I don't know, 60, 70 years is kind of a dream of ours. And when I left Club Passim in 2009, okay, I had boxes and boxes and boxes that I had truly just been dragging around with me in my basement. They never should have survived. I had reel-to-reels in plastic bags. I mean, it was an embarrassment of riches. But what it allowed me to do was to take the Club 47 legacy onto the next level. When I was a freshman at Boston University, Joan Baez and I were roommates together, and we thought we were going to be actresses. We managed to act, but not in class, not in school anywhere. Primarily, we would try to memorize a scene from a play, and we would just end up in hysterics, and nobody would learn anything. I had an apartment, and Joan started staying with me. Her parents thought she was still at BU. She was not. But she was not sure she was in or out, but when she got a report card after she'd not been in school for about 7 months, she figured she was still registered. And as she will tell it, she flunked everything except music theory. Everything else in the book that was theatrical or artistic or musical, she had no patience for. I started working in the Cafe Yana, which was one of the original little teeny weeny coffee houses in the basement of a brownstone just outside of the Boston University campus. Literally, I think there were 14 seats. There was coffee, and the artists had to play up in the window over the radiator, so it was hard to sort of get yourself and your instruments all organized and not burn yourself. I learned about Club 47 still 1958, maybe early 59, and I went there as an audience member. I had no prior backgrounds to the club or what it did, but I fell in love, and I thought college was not for me either. If it wasn't good enough for Joan, it certainly wasn't good enough for me. And so I began working there as a waitress in a coffee house. And little by little, or maybe it wasn't little by little, but the artists that were beginning to come through Club 47 were startling in their proficiency, in their dedication, their passion for their music. In many cases, their historical lives from being from down south. I put these, they're over on that side table, and this is a calendar from 1966, Club 47, and I hope you'll take one with you. In this 1 month of May 1966, Sun House, Carolyn Hester, Reverend Gary Davis for 2 nights, the Staple Singers for 4 nights, Mississippi John Hurt, 3 nights, the Silverleaf Gospel Singers, Jesse Fuller. And this was the middle of the 60s. There was no opportunity, as Jocelyn said, for these folks to stay in hotels. Libba Cotton once came to play there, and she wanted to buy a new blouse, and they would not sell her a blouse in a Harvard Square shop. So that fallout gave us the rarest of opportunities, because Reverend Gary Davis would sleep on my couch, and the stories and the songs and the not performance, the talking with young kids and teaching kids certain licks from his guitar and telling his stories, all blended together into being an enormously important education for all of us who are connected to Club 47. We were in that perfect storm of civil rights, women's rights, the Vietnam War, and it all came into our doorstep because we were, in fact, one of those coffee houses that embraced everybody from every aspect of American life. And because of my relationship with Ralph Rinsler when he was in the Greenbrier Boys, he began bringing Bill Monroe up to the club, and that sort of opened the floodgates for bluegrass and old-timey music. It was a gift every day that you went to work there. And you got to know people. Like, I'm still good friends with Mavis Staples, and you know, she was a young thing back then. And yet they taught us more than we ever expected to learn. And the feeling that one came from there was empowerment. Certainly Joan was a deep influence about what you can do when you're brave and you stand up and you say what you think. And in the coffee house world, that was absolutely acceptable. So these were 10 wonderful years, from 58 to 68. By 1968, everybody was a band, and we could not afford bands. Jim Rooney talks of having to book the Paul Butterfield Blues Band 5 nights, 3 shows a night, to barely give them $1,000. And we had never paid anyone $1,000 for anything. And it kind of began to break the spirit of what we were doing. We were that little cozy coffee house where we could pamper and be pampered, be educated, and educate a wide variety of audience along with the artists, was tougher and tougher and tougher. In the beginning, in 1958, 2 women decided, hey, let's open a coffee house. Well, hey, what will we do? Well, let's have something like a French coffee house where we'll let people smoke Gauloise and drink coffee and talk in French. So that was the beginning of Club 47. And they would get jazz bands from Harvard to come and play a couple nights a week. Somehow Joan slipped in through the door and all things changed. The cops closed us down because we had instruments that were smaller than a piano. They forced us into becoming a nonprofit, which hardly seems worth discussing at this point, but that's what happened. And we had memberships, and we charged everybody who came through the door $1. Now, you could see how it'd be hard to raise $1,000 a night on that. But in the early days, it was really, it was just a treasure. And we did the coffee house circuit in Cambridge. They were larger places than we were. They were smaller places. But I spent most of my time just at Club 47, and I cannot tell you what I would have done with my life had it not been for those key moments in my early youth when I knew almost nothing and learned so much through musicians and music and the political times, and it was all accepted. It was really a rare and wonderful opportunity that I think coffee houses still provide for people across the country, and folk festivals provide. It's very important that folk festivals stay alive and well because they bring you the largest amount of variety in the music world. And again, it's Americana is out of control. It's such an enormous field now, and so many musicians are finding new roots and new ways of being in the music world. So my story is just that. Now I plan on trying to pull all of our archives together, and we have things like Doc Watson's very first performance in Boston, which is just a joy. But raising the money is the hard part. But to close, I can't think of anything I could have done better. I don't think there's nothing I really wanted to do besides this once I got my feet wet and moved into the world of music and storytelling and what it brings to our country as a way of understanding us from a very palatable prospectus. So thank you for listening. Grab one of these calendars if you want. There's a little bit of information on the back of it about the archives. So thank you.